Hi again, Mark here from Talkingbass.net. So over the last few weeks I've been running a survey on the kind of lessons that you'd like to see a little more of in 2019, and it seems that the music theory comes pretty high on the list. It's something that I did a lot of when I first started the channel, and if you go back through the hundreds of lessons that I've recorded, you'll find plenty of theory videos. But I've not really covered much theory stuff of late, so in this lesson I'm going to show you an exercise that can really put your brain to the test. You'll learn the notes on the neck, a bunch of different arpeggio patterns, the chords within a key, the notes within the major scale and the key, and the cycle of fourths and fifths, all within this one exercise. So buckle up and get ready for a real harmony bass workout. Remember, all the lesson material for this video can be found over at Talkingbass.net, so just follow the link in the info below where you'll find the tab and a rundown of the whole lesson. And then while you're there, check out the lesson map where you'll find hundreds more lessons on every other bass topic imaginable. And it's all organised for ease of navigation. Then, for even more goodies, sign up to Talking Bass for free to gain access to the members area where you'll find a bunch of different practice resources and downloads like the scale reference ebook. Okay? Go check it out. So, first of all, I'm just going to demonstrate this exercise in C major. There are 3 variations on it, and I'm going to work through each of those in turn. So all we're going to do is play through the arpeggios or chords of the major key, one at a time, working up one string, okay? We're going to work up the neck and then back down, and that's it. But we're going to say each arpeggio aloud as we go. Now, as I mentioned, there are 3 variations, and that's because we're going to use a different arpeggio fingering each time. We're going to be trying one based on the 2nd finger, the 1st finger, and the 4th finger. So here I'll just work through in C major and with those 3 variations. So first of all, I'm going to play starting on the 2nd finger. So we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and we're up to C major. Then we work down. C major, B diminished, A minor, G major, F major, E minor, D minor, and back down to C major. Okay, so that's the exercise, and that's starting on the 2nd finger. Then we can try starting on the 1st finger. So again, remember this is all triads, so we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major. Okay, and then we'd work back down. And then finally we work through starting on the 4th finger, which gives us C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major. Okay, so that's the whole exercise. So that's the whole exercise, and beyond that you want to work through every key, but I'll get to that in a second. But watching that exercise, you might be thinking, yeah, that looks pretty easy, and you know, it is from a physical standpoint. The tough part is knowing your fretboard and your keys. So let's run through how we would do that with the exercise. So first of all, we have to know our major scale, okay? And we want to be able to play that on one string. So just in case you didn't know, a major scale is made up of a formula of whole steps and half steps. That's how we work out the major scale. So the formula is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, or tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So you can just think two whole steps, half step, 3 whole steps, half step. Okay. Now, if you didn't know, on the bass fretboard, a whole step would be 2 frets of distance, so C to D, and a half step would be 1 fret of distance, so C to C sharp or D flat. So let's take that formula and just work it up one string. So for a C major scale, obviously, we'd start on the C, and then we work through the formula. So up a whole step to D, up another whole step to E, up a half step to F, up a whole step to G, up a whole step to A, up another whole step to B, and and then finally a half step to C. And that's it. That's how we work out a major scale. So C, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And obviously, when you learn a major scale, with the most common pattern, all we've done is taken that formula that we just played on one string, and we've just transposed those notes down into that first area. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's the set of notes. We just play them in whatever way we want to play them. There's thousands of different ways that you could distribute those notes across there. But, at its core, it's whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So, using that formula, for C, we get the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. That's the C major scale. But then if we wanted to create that formula starting on, let's say, an F, we'd play the same set of whole steps and half steps. So F to G, whole step, then A, B flat, C, D, E, F, okay? And it works for, wherever we want to start, B flat, E flat, whatever. So that's the first step, knowing the notes of the scale, okay? So once we know those notes, for the scale that we're going to work on, we have to learn them up the neck. And this is where knowing the notes of the fretboard comes into play. So, like I said, we're only going to play this on one string. So for this, we're just going to play it on the A string. So you need to learn that scale working up and down. So for C major, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, so now you don't have to worry necessarily about the whole steps and half steps. Just learn those notes. And for many of you, you might find that quite tricky because you've got to know those notes on your neck. The first few, C and D, you might be okay with, maybe even an E. But then as you get up into this no man's land here, that a lot of people don't like, you've got F, G, A, and remember the A is just, the 12th fret is the same as the open string there, so that's the A, and then we're in this area, we're repeating this area, so you can see there that's a B and we're up to the C, okay? So once you get into this area, knowing the notes isn't too bad if you know them down here, but this area is going to be the one that's going to be tricky. So just work through that scale slowly and stick with it for a while, because if you can't nail this, then the rest of the exercise will be pretty much impossible. You've got to know that set of notes on one string. So just do that for a while. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Say the notes out loud and really focus on which frets you're playing there. Don't necessarily think in terms of the number. Look at the fret markers. Look at those. Think C, okay, that's that fret marker. D, that's that fret marker. E, okay, we've worked up each of those fret markers, C, D, E. Then we're into this no man's land. So we've got F, G, and A. Just really focus on remembering those. As you work through F, that's an F. G, okay, that's a G, I've got that. There's no fret markers under my fingers. Okay, I get that. They're natural notes. They're between the fret markers. Then we get to the A, okay, that's the 12th fret, that's the double fret marker. B, and that's here, and C. Just really concentrate on memorizing those notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Okay? So we have our scale and we know those notes. So next we have to play the arpeggios within that key, starting on each note in turn. Now in case you don't know what I'm talking about, every key has a set of chords within it. A palette of chords starting on each note of the scale. Every scale or major scale has 7 notes. So for every key we have 7 chords. So all you have to do to learn this is you just have to learn that sequence of chords. I'm not going to get too far into all of the, the chord construction and stuff like that because I've already covered that on other lessons. All we're going to look at is that sequence of chords. So here you can see the notes in C major numbered as we work through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can see the chords assigned to each of those notes. So we're just looking at triads for now. We're not going to cover 7th chords in this lesson, just triads. So this is 3-note chords. So for chord 1 there, we've got C major. For chord 2, we've got D minor. Chord 3, E minor. Chord 4, F major. Chord 5, G major. Chord 6, A minor. And then for chord 7, we've got B diminished. So the sequence of chords is chord 1 major, chord 2 minor, chord 3 minor, chord 4 major, chord 5 major, chord 6 minor, and chord 7 diminished. And that set of chords is the same no matter what key we're in. So if we're in F major, we're going to have F major, then G minor, then A minor, and just working through. So, we just transpose that set of chords. One way to memorize that sequence is just to think of chords 1, 4, and 5 as major, and then the rest of them are minor, apart from chord 7, the odd one out, which is diminished, okay? So the key here is knowing that 1, 4, and 5 are major, and they're our primary chords. They're the chords that you'll get in lots and lots of different songs, Okay, very, very common chords there. They're the primary chords. So 1, 4, and 5 are major. So when we work through that list again, we just think 1, okay, that's major. 2, it's not 1, 4, or 5, so it's minor. Chord 3 is minor. Then we get to chords 4 and 5. They're both major. Chord 6, minor, and then the odd one out at the end, which is 7, which is diminished. So that might be just an easy way of memorizing it, but whatever you do, you just need to learn that sequence. So to apply that set of chords to our scale here, we're going to have to learn 3 different arpeggios. So we're going to be looking at the major triad, the minor triad, and the diminished triad. So I'll very quickly just run through some basic patterns for that. So if we look at, let's say, a C major triad, a triad is made up of 2/3, one stacked on top of the other. Don't worry too much about all the theory behind this. I've got other lessons devoted to it. So we've got C, E, and G. We've got C to E, which is a major third, and then E to G, which is a minor third. Okay, so that's the construction there. But really, you can just look at the actual pattern here. So we've got C, which I'm playing there, 3rd fret of the A string, then E, 2nd fret of the D string, and then the G, 5th fret of the D string. So that is a C major triad. Okay, for a minor triad, we have a flattened third in there. Now, we're going to work through all the different fingerings for this in a minute, but one of the most common ways to play this is actually starting on the 1st finger. So for a C minor, we would play C, 3rd fret of the A string, then E flat at the 6th fret of the A string, and then the G at the 5th fret of the D string. So that's our pattern there, okay? So now we have 2 triads. We've got the major. Hear how it's got that happy sound. You really want to know how they sound as well as how they look. And then, and C minor, okay? That's much more sad sounding. So major, minor. Finally, we just need to know a diminished triad. So to do this, all we're going to do is play the minor triad, but then flatten the 5th. So the intervallic construction is root note, minor third, and diminished 5th. So we have C on 3rd fret of the A string, then E flat, 6th fret of the A string. So that's just like the minor triad. And then we play the flattened 5th. So we're not playing this G here, we're playing the G flat, which is the 4th fret of the D string. Okay, so that's C diminished, a C diminished triad. Okay, and here it's got more of that evil sound. So that's our 3 arpeggios. C major, which is happy. C minor, which is sad. And C diminished, which is evil. So now we can apply those arpeggios to our scale on one string. So you remember those that set of chords, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Let's work through it. So we have C major, then D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. Back to C major, and then we can come back down. C major, B diminished, A minor, G major, F major, E minor, D minor, and C major. That is the core foundation of this exercise. That's the basic exercise. So now we can try the 3 variations on the exercise, and to do this we're going to learn 3 fingering patterns for each of those arpeggios. And to do this we're going to be starting on a different finger each time. Now I am going to describe them in terms of 1st finger, 2nd finger or 4th finger, but in fact we're just learning a different fingering pattern for it. You can actually use whatever fingering you want, but it's most efficient to actually play it starting on one of those 3 fingers. So let's start with the 2nd finger patterns. So let's just go back to our C major. So if we look at C major there, the standard pattern that we played started on that 2nd finger. So that's our 2nd finger pattern. But we can also play the minor arpeggio, the minor triad like that. So we start on that second finger again for the C. To do this, we're going to just drop that E there down to the E flat. So instead of playing this E flat here at the 6th fret, we're going to play it at the 1st fret of the D string. Okay, so don't worry about stretching for it, just, you know, move the hand slightly to play it with the 1st finger. So that's C to E flat, and then just move up to the G there, 5th fret of the D string. So that's our second finger C minor. So it's exactly the same as the C major, but we flattened that 3rd. Okay, so it's actually easier to see the construction of the arpeggios in this way. So C major, C minor, and then for the diminished, same again, C, E flat, and then the G flat at the 4th fret of the D string. So, and you might find that easier to start on the 3rd finger. Like I said, you know, you don't have to always use the 2nd finger. Sometimes it's a lot easier to maybe use one of the other fingers. So, 3rd finger there. All it is just that set of notes in that area. So C, E flat, and G flat. So we've got C major, C minor, and C diminished. Okay? Next, let's try those arpeggios starting on the 1st finger. So we'll start with C major. C there, 3rd fret of the A string again with the 1st finger. And you can see now we're out of position for this E down here at the 2nd fret. So for this one, we're going to play that E up here at the 7th fret of the A string. So we've got C, E, and then G, 5th fret of the D string. 1st finger, 4th finger, or pinky, and then I'm using the 2nd finger for the G. That is our 1st finger major arpeggio. Okay, so this is how you learn arpeggios in different areas around the neck. You know, we were playing the C major here, now we can play it here. You know, we can move these around. So that's C major. Next, C minor. So this is exactly the same pattern that we learned right at the start, just starting on the 1st finger, C, E flat, and then G. Okay, so we already know that one. Then for the diminished, again, the same one that we learned at the start. C, E flat, and then the G flat there. So 3rd fret, 6th fret on the A string, and then the 4th fret on the D string. So that's all of our 1st finger arpeggios. Finally, we can try the 4th finger patterns, and this means we're moving below the root note. So instead of, like with the 1st finger where we moved up, this time we're moving below. Now to do this, because we're going to be playing the diminished one, I'm actually going to start at the C at the 8th fret of the E string to give us a bit more real estate below. So if you take your pinky, 4th finger, play the C at the 8th fret of the E string, you can then take the E at the 7th fret of the A string, and then we can take the G at the 5th fret of the D string. So that's another major triad pattern, starting on the 4th finger. So if we were to play all of them in this area, we would have 2nd finger, 1st finger, and 4th finger. You can see how much more real estate we're using here. So this is one of the great reasons for learning these. So we've got C major, then for C minor, we just drop that E down a fret. So we've got C to E flat, 6th fret of the A string, and then the G again, 5th fret of the D string. That's C minor. Then finally for the diminished, we just drop that G down to the G flat, which is at the 4th fret of the D string, giving us this pattern. Okay, so C, E flat, G flat, 8th fret E string, 6th fret A string, and then the 4th fret on the D string. Again, don't worry about that big stretch, just pivot the thumb and make a hand movement as you move down, okay? And that's the 4th finger patterns. So, you know, as I said, you could have played them here. C major, C minor, but then for the diminished, you know, it's below the open string for the G, so we'd have to actually use the 2nd finger pattern there to play it. So I'm just playing it here at the 8th fret so that you can see how that pattern works. So that's our 3 arpeggio patterns. So now we can put them to good use by working through this exercise. So first of all, we'll just try playing with the 2nd finger patterns, okay? So for every arpeggio, we'll play it with the 2nd finger. So starting with C major, then D minor, so this is the 2nd finger minor pattern, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. Okay, so again, that's the 2nd finger pattern there, you can see, which I'm playing with the 3rd finger, and then we're up to C major, and then back down. A minor, G major, F major, E minor, D minor, C minor, C major. Okay, so that's the exercise starting on the second finger. Next, let's try it with the first finger. So, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major. Once you get up to that part, up to the C major up there, it might be a little bit, finger twisting to do it, so you might have to move the bass into a different position to, really accommodate those notes. But, as long as you know the pattern, it's fine. And finally, let's try with the fourth finger. Now, just as I mentioned earlier, the actual fingering isn't that important. It's more about the actual pattern itself. So for this C major, you might find it easier to actually start with the third finger again. So that would be, okay, so I'm just playing that C there, third fret of the A string, second fret of the D string, and then the open G string. Okay, so that's C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, that large pattern there, and then C major, and back down. B diminished, A minor, G major, F major, E minor, D minor, and C major. Okay? So that's our completed exercise. All that's left is to work through every key, and this is where this exercise gets tough and really excels. To play the exercise in a different key, you have to know the notes in the key and be able to see them on the neck. You also have to be able to say those chords out loud as you go, learning each of the chords in that key. And this is really important for developing your knowledge of scales and keys. If you've ever wondered how people can transpose chord progressions or bass lines on the fly without relying on, shifting fretboard patterns around, this is how. You get a good knowledge of each key. So as an example, let's just try playing this exercise in G major. So remember, first of all, we need to know the notes of that scale. So just think of a G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then we're to the G. So that's our set of notes, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Okay, so there's just one sharp in there. And then we need to work through the chords in there. So we would have G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and F sharp diminished. Okay, so it's the same sequence of chords that we just used. We're just applying it to a different set of notes. So now we play them up the neck. So first of all, let's play that scale. So let's start at the G there, third fret of the E string, and just work through each of the notes of the scale up to the octave. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, okay? And then back down, G, F sharp, E, D, C, then B, A, and G, okay? So that's the scale up one string, and again, this is going to really help with learning the notes on the neck, both the notes of the scale and the notes on the fretboard. So you want to try that first, really nail that first. And again, concentrate on which notes are assigned to which fret markers. We've got G, A, and B, those first three notes, they're on fret markers. Then we're between the fret markers for the C and the D and the E, and then we're up to the F sharp there, and then finally to the G. By playing through that scale many, many times, you'll just get to know the notes of the scale, but you'll really get to know those notes on that E string, okay? Once you feel comfortable with the scale, work through the arpeggios. So again, starting with the second finger, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G major, okay? And then you can work back down. Then you can try with the first finger, so G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, then E minor, then F sharp diminished, and back to G major. Again, once you get up there, it can be a little bit hard on the hand. So that's the first finger, and then finally we can try with the fourth finger. So G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and back to G major. Okay, so that's the whole exercise. You just work through those three different variations. And by the time you've finished doing that, if you've worked on that scale for a while, just learning all those notes, if you already know that sequence of chords, you're going to feel a lot better about the fretboard. You're going to know all those notes as you work up. You're not going to be, as worried when you're getting into these certain areas up here, like the C and the D. You'll already know it. I mean, the fact that you'll have memorized it, even in terms of the actual muscle memory, it doesn't really matter because you're still assigning those notes to a fret. You're still seeing that when you get to here, you know that's a C, and when you get to here, you know it's a D. You're learning the fretboard. Now, to systematically work through every key, you want to work through the circle of fifths or fourths. Now, the circle of fifths looks like this. It's just an ordering of notes that you see in that clockwise direction, and we're moving up a perfect fourth each time. So we start at C, then we move up a fifth to G, then again to D, then to A, and so on. And eventually, if we follow it around with a bit of an enharmonic shift at F sharp, so F sharp being G flat, we get back round to C. Now for the circle of fourths, we just work around in a counterclockwise direction. So we have C, F, B flat, E flat, etc. So each time we're just working up a fourth, a perfect fourth. And this works, going clockwise for fifths and counterclockwise for fourths, because a fourth is just an inversion of a fifth interval. And if you want to learn more about inverted intervals, just check out my lesson on YouTube, which I'll link in the info below. Now, I also have lessons on memorizing the circle of fourths and fifths, and I won't waste time running through it all here, but once you learn them, you'll have a great way of learning any new material in every key. And I'd recommend trying this exercise through the cycle of fifths from C to F sharp, and then through the cycle of fourths from C to G flat. So we're only going halfway around, but that gives us all of our keys without having to worry about going into all double sharps and double flats and all that kind of stuff that you can run into. So when we do that, the exercises would run through in the order C major, G major, D major, A major, E major, B major, and F sharp major. So that's working through the fifths. And then the other way with the fourths, we would have C major, F major, B flat major, E flat major, then A flat major, D flat major, and then G flat major. Okay, so that covers all of the keys there. We just don't have any of the sharp keys, but we're more likely to run into the flat keys anyway. I mean, you can work through the cycle, the complete cycle if you want, but I just think, in terms of running through every one of the 12 keys, you're probably best off doing it that way, just going C to F sharp and C to G flat. So that's the exercise. Some of you may be able to just play through it straight away in every key, and if that's the case, then great. But I suspect that most of you will find this quite tricky or even impossible at first. So follow the steps that I've provided and practice each one in turn until you have it sufficiently nailed. Then move on. Okay, so as I mentioned, all the lesson material is available over at talkingbass.net, so just follow that link in the info below. Also, please like this lesson if it's helped and subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to be notified of new lesson releases every Friday. Remember, we have courses over at Talking Bass on every topic from slapping to ear training, sight reading, walking bass lines, and much, much more. So go check that out and I'll see you next week.